Hello and welcome to the Wedding Dish Podcast. Grab your fork and knife and take a seat at our table as we dish on all things weddings. You'll hear stories and tips from real couples and wedding pros about love, life, and entrepreneurship. I am Sarah Alapin, your host of the Wedding Dish Podcast and the CEO of Photos from the Hardy and District Bliss. And today we have our little French bulldog friend Clouseau sitting in my lap, unintentionally matching me if you're watching on YouTube. He's in his little it's snowy in DC, so he's in his little Marty McFly vest. And I'm just wearing red as well. Before we get started, if you have not listened to last week's episode, we had another amazing guest join us. It was such a fun conversation. Definitely flag it and go back after you listen to this one. And today we are dishing with a luxury travel planner who helps couples plan meaningful, stress-free trips that actually feel like a break. The human behind Research Travel Repeat, Becki Bergesser. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dish.
Me too. I'm so excited. I love talking travel. It's one of my favorites. We've spent a lot of time traveling here, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about some of these questions here. So I'm super curious. How did you first get into travel planning?
Yeah, so it's actually an interesting story because when I grew up, my family didn't really travel at all internationally. We did domestic trips before I was 18. The only places I had been were the United States and Canada, just because we lived close to British Columbia. So we went up there occasionally. But it wasn't until I studied abroad in college that I actually fell in love with travel. I studied abroad in Rome and got the chance to travel throughout Italy, go to France, Spain, England, and Ireland. And that just really, the travel bug bit me. So I started wanting to travel throughout Europe and other international destinations. I met my partner when I was in grad school in 2007. And he had really no interest he in fact told me, I have no interest in ever going to Europe. And I said, that's going to change. He was more the type of guy who just wanted to do like the all-inclusive in Mexico, sit on the beach, drink a cocktail. And I slowly introduced him to international travel. We did our honeymoon in Costa Rica, and he just saw kind of like how exciting it can be to experience new cultures, see animals, and all the wonderful things that come with exploring new places. And then I have since done a bunch of travel planning for us, as well as for friends and family. And I just love the research aspect of it. As Americans, we have very limited time off, and I think it's really important to maximize our PTO. And I kind of see it as a puzzle, just kind of figuring out where do you have time to go in the time that you have off and what are the best deals. So really making the most of that.
That is so fun. I know exactly what you mean about the kind of like having a partner who travels differently. I've been really lucky. My husband and I travel similarly. But I didn't know how to relax on the beach because our traveling had been like to South America, but like to like Santiago, Chile and like Buenos Aires and then like to London we'd never really done like beach relax vacations, and so I had to learn to relax, and it gave me so much anxiety initially because I was like, I know I'm forgetting something. I must be like, there's something I need to be doing right now. I
That's funny because that's the exact opposite of my partner. It was like the beach was the only style of vacation he was initially interested in. And I was like, no, we actually have to go out and explore.
it's so funny. Yeah, so when you said, I was like, I can relate in the opposite way.
And And I've discovered there's a really good mix between the two.
Yes, we have also learned this as well. I have also since then gotten scuba certified. So
Ooh,
that also makes the beach differently fun.
for sure. Yeah, adding in that element of adventure to the beach destination for sure.
Yes, it does. I had to set Cluzo down there. He was asking to, not be in my lap anymore. His opinions are more important than mine. Sorry about
That's right.
that. You know how it is.
Our little
Uh,
divas.
I know. Oh my gosh. Love them so much. What are the biggest mistakes that you see couples make when planning their honeymoons? I think this is like we think about, from the outside, we imagine that everyone has this like amazing honeymoon because we see these like beautiful pictures and da 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 da. But that isn't always the reality. And I suspect you know a lot more about this than I do.
Very true. So I would say one of the biggest things that's coming up right now is people over relying on AI to plan.
Oh, I can see that.
I think that AI definitely has a place in brainstorming. It can be a great way to, put in like what you're interested in and then get a couple recommendations for places that might align with your travel style. But it's kind of scary how much people rely on AI to actually plan their trips, which is something I would never recommend. There's actually a really good, interesting article in the BBC last year about all these people who relied on ChatGPT to plan their trip and the kind of dangerous situations it got them into.
Oh
They had a
no.
statistic that 33% of AI recommended information included false information.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be my first thought.
Yeah, so like it can be anything as simple as like it tells you like a restaurant is there and recommends it and the restaurant has since closed down. So it's stuff like that. But then there's also things that like it recommended a hike in Peru that didn't even exist. It
Oh
just like
gosh.
made up the hike. Or there was a trip that people went on in Japan, up Mount Meeson. And ChatGPT was telling them the last that you have to get down via a ropeway. And it told them the last ropeway for the day departed at 5:30 p.m. And when they got there after seeing sunset, it was closed and they were literally stuck at the top of the mountain for the night.
Oh my God. And that like okay, you have to do due diligence. Like you can't
Yes.
just like even if you were using a Rick Steves travel planner from back in the day,
Yeah.
you
Make
still
sure
have to
that's correct.
check. Yeah. Like especially in something that puts you in danger, like being stuck on top of a mountain, you could have, you're exposed to the elements.
Absolutely.
Who knows what the wildlife situation is. Altitude could be a factor as well. You could end up like getting really lightheaded. You haven't eaten, like now we're missing 2 meals, presumably, I would imagine, by the time you actually get down. It's not like a rope crossing is a short endeavor
Yeah.
typically.
So that's a big part of what I do in my business is like do the up-to-date research for people, even if they like are pretty familiar with where they're going. It helps to do all that background research and figure out what the most recent recommendations are, what is actually the hours of the different pieces of transportation, all of those factors. The next two biggest mistakes I see couples make when planning honeymoons are actually kind of opposite of each other. One would be over planning or planning too much, not giving yourself any time to relax. Weddings are so stressful to plan and be a part of that I think a really important factor of the honeymoon is just having that time for the two of you to just decompress. And if you're planning like a honeymoon that's just go, 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 then you're not leaving any of that space for that reconnection time. So my advice in that sense would be either cutting back on the number of destinations you want to visit, or if it's possible, adding more days to your trip to give yourself that buffer time.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, I would say I highly recommend against totally winging your trip or not planning at all. Um, because I think that's just going to lead to a lot of disappointment. It could mean like standing in long lines, going to places that are overly crowded. It might mean that you're just spending hours searching for a restaurant, especially if you're going in peak tourist season. There's times when all the restaurants are totally booked if you don't have a reservation. It might mean that you aren't even able to get a hotel where you want to stay. Um, and also ending up in a spot that's just way too touristy.
Yeah.
That would be the fourth mistake I see people make is just going off things that you're seeing on Instagram. Um,
I was just thinking that
yeah.
when you started saying it, I was like, oh God, and this is the same as, or like, this is the piece that leads to, I didn't actually do the research outside of social media, which is not reality. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I always like it when people post the real pictures on social media. It'll be like, this is the picture that you see of the Bolivia salt flats. And it's like this beautiful place all empty. And then it's like, this is the place for real. And it's like everyone just like trying to snap a picture for Instagram and just ridiculous. So I would say avoid going to only the touristy spots. I think like, I mean, if you've always wanted to go to Paris and that's what you choose to do for your honeymoon, like obviously you probably want to do the Eiffel Tower. It's classic. But don't spend all of your time just doing the most touristy spots. Look and do some research on what are some hidden cafes you might want to check out. Um, what are some parks that maybe locals go to? So try to truly dive into the place, get to know the people, the culture. Um, and then my last thing that I would say that the mistake that people make would be we've talked about this a little bit already, is not balancing travel styles or interests. Because there are people who are totally interested in just laying on the beach, having a drink. And then there's the type of people who go to places like Santiago, Chile, and they want to go on a hike all day. And a lot of times those partners end up getting married to each other. And
True.
And my recommendation for that would be that it's okay, even on your honeymoon, you don't have to spend every waking moment together. Say, for example, you're interested in scuba diving and your partner is afraid of going in the ocean. It's fine to take an afternoon apart and each go do your own activities. One partner maybe is interested in golfing, the other is interested in shopping. It's okay to spend a little bit of time apart and reconvene at dinner and then have time to talk about the different adventures you had. And then the other thing is the biggest thing in marriage, compromise. So figure out maybe it's possible to spend a couple days if one of the partners is very interested in art museums. Maybe you spend a couple days in Rome checking out the Sistine Chapel and all the art museums there. And then maybe if the other partner is more interested in the beach, you go down to southern Italy, go to one of the islands. So I think there's a definite ability to compromise, but also spend a little bit of time apart and just give yourself space to indulge in what's interesting to you.
I love that. I could not agree more. I do think that we tend to marry we tend to partner with the people who are the opposite type of traveler in terms of one is the relaxed traveler and the other one is the like busy, keep going, don't sit down for too long traveler. Um, and it is important to balance all of that. So I love that. I think that that's so accurate. It's definitely my story. And that's actually how we travel is we will plan a trip that involves if we're going on safari, we're going to add in the Seychelles. And we're going to do like a week on safari and then we're going to do like 5 days or whatever. I mean, we haven't actually done this yet. Um, the only,
You
I think,
definitely should.
yes, it is on the list. I think the only straight relaxed trip we did was the Maldives. But that, I've learned to relax now. I've learned to love the beach. And also, I think we went scuba diving almost every day while we were there.
I was gonna say, I
Um,
bet if you were in the Maldives, you did diving.
which is a huge activity.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, that kind of takes up most of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you're so tired after that it's like you just need the relaxed time.
It's funny because I listened to your episode actually on the two ladies who plan safari trips.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like what they said, it was totally accurate. They were talking about for honeymoon, like give yourself some time to relax at the end. My husband and I did a trip to Africa probably about 5 years ago, and it's totally true. You need that break at the end, like you were saying, like the Seychelles. We went to Zanzibar at the end of our trip, because going on a safari is surprisingly exhausting. You have to wake up really early every morning and then it's all like go, go, go. So,
Yeah, and like the heat, so I hear. Again, haven't done myself yet, but you've got the heat in the midday, so you're like kind of doing like quieter time midday, depending on where you actually are. Where
right.
did you go on safari?
We went to Kenya and Tanzania, and
Okay.
our big surprise was that it was actually a lot colder than we expected it to be, especially in the evenings.
I was gonna say in the mornings I that wouldn't surprise me because it that makes sense that it would be given the climate, not specifically desert, but it has that same sort of adjustment in temperature, I would imagine.
Yeah, we
Um,
definitely wish we'd brought more warm clothes.
yeah, we had started planning a trip to Africa, and we put it on hold for we had some like health things come up in both of our families that were just like one thing, and then it would be a
Right.
small break, and then like another thing. I guess being flexible with your travel plans is also probably important as you're listening to me tell for anyone out there.
Yes, after COVID, I learned to get travel insurance and plan things that have good refund policies.
Yes. We learned that the hard way, but not COVID, which was very disappointing. So I can tell you offline, but I don't want to derail our conversation because this is so much fun. But yeah, travel insurance, especially when you're spending a lot of money on it, please
Yeah.
get it. Okay, dream with me here. What does a sample honeymoon itinerary look like for you?
Yeah, so I'd be happy to share. I actually recently finished planning a honeymoon for a couple we know named John and Kristen, and they are going to Thailand next month.
Ooh,
I'm super excited for them. It's one of their first international travel experiences. So they're actually doing a couple days in Taiwan and then going to Thailand. And it's so much fun to plan trips when I have been to the places that people are going, because I get all excited for them to go to my favorite spots. So one thing that I would say is a big thing for honeymoons that I always like to include is some kind of local experience. So what I plan for them, I plan kind of a few local experiences, but the one that stands out in my mind is a cooking class when they're in Chiang Mai. And if you haven't been to Thailand, the food is amazing. I was a little worried because I don't handle spicy food very well.
oh,
It's totally fine. I didn't have any problems when we were there. And then the other thing I say a sample or any kind of honeymoon needs, as we talked about before, is time to relax. I think that's a big thing people neglect when they're planning their honeymoon. And they kind of think about like, these are all the things we want to do, but also give yourself time to relax. You're just done with your wedding.
yeah.
Um, So I use a philosophy called 311, and it's making sure that you're spending 3 nights in each place. The reason I do that is the first night you arrive, you get settled in. The second day, you have the whole day to explore, truly dig into the place, experience the culture. Do any of those activities, see any of the sites that you want to see. And then the third day, you can be very relaxed and unhurried. You can go back to places that you may have liked, but you really don't have to feel that time crunch like you would if you were just spending a day or two in a location. I've definitely done trips like that. My husband and I did 10 countries in 3.5 weeks in Europe.
Wow.
We were
Wow.
we were a little younger then. That's not something I would do now.
That's bold.
Yeah, but I have done that and it gets pretty exhausting by the end. So I think that giving yourself minimum of 2 nights in each destination so you have a little bit of time to unpack your bag, stuff like that, is really important for being able to relax. The second thing is planning one anchor activity each day. And I think that really helps with the aspect of not over planning or cramming too much in. So that anchor activity is totally based on the couple's interest. It might be going to a museum, it could be going for a long hike, it might just be spending the day on the beach. It doesn't have to be anything that's too big or too stressful, but it's that one thing that you know you want to do that day and have the experience of together. And then the final thing that I really like adding in is some kind of shared ritual. One of the things I focus on a lot in my business is helping couples reconnect. And hopefully, if you're going on your honeymoon, you're still pretty connected. But I do work with couples who have been married for a long time as well. And I think that shared ritual, whether it's couple's really into coffee, maybe they go check out a new cafe each morning. It might be watching the sunset. That's one my husband and I love doing together, is finding
Us
all the
too.
different places that we can watch the sunset from. Or might be something like a daily check-in question to just kind of reconnect and get to know each other better, or re-spark that connection.
I love that. That sounds lovely. We have also done trips like that where we didn't give ourselves enough time to unpack. And what I had happen is that by the end, I was skipping things that I had really looked forward to that were like my favorite things. And I was like, I don't need to stop and we don't
Yeah.
need to go to Cinque Terre. Like we don't need to stop there. It's 2 hours out of the way. We don't need to stop.
Yeah. One of the biggest things I think that I've learned from cramming too much into a trip is like you don't want to feel like you need a vacation when you come home from your vacation.
Yes. Because it's always gonna feel a bit like that because you have to do all the laundry and like go
Yeah.
grocery shopping and all that. But to be like exhausted to your core
Right.
makes it worse.
Absolutely.
And I love the idea of having something that I love the anchor activity, of course, and I like the idea of having something that brings you closer together, whatever that looks like. But my husband and I really love watching the sunset as well. We usually find it just something that we can do together every day that's like special and like quiet in its own little way, which is
Absolutely.
kind of nice too. Yeah. So yeah, I love that sounds lovely. Now I need to plan myself a vacation or have you help me. And we like just got back.
Where did you go most
Um,
recently?
we were in Puerto Vallarta, Riviera Nayarit, and then we went up to Punta de Mita, and we were at the O&O Mondrian, that's like north of Punta Mita.
I'm guessing you did diving while you were there.
We did not. That is
No.
very cold water diving. And I am kind of a sissy about cold water.
Me too.
And
Me too.
I'm not I'm not dry suit certified.
I didn't realize that was a separate certification.
It is because it's like you have air between you and the suit, and so you're not like wet. Um,
Right.
you're like closed off from the water and you are heating the air between you and the suit. But if you don't know how to manage it, it can like there are some safety issues that can happen.
Okay. Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, and we just don't really go anywhere that's that cold. But we saw tons of humpback whales, like just
Ooh,
tons,
that's awesome.
which was so fun. And it was just, yeah. My husband's parents live down there, so
Ooh,
um, yeah. So it was our
that's a
holiday
plus.
trip that we extended.
Yeah, awesome. Well, if you're ever looking for a place with very, very warm water, we went to Tahiti over the holidays.
Ooh, Philippe
We
has
did
been there.
not
I
do
have
diving,
not.
but the water, like the first day we got in, and I was like, this is incredible.
I that is definitely on my list. Yeah, we need to figure out what the best time of year to go for us would be. But yes, that is definitely on the list. I need to push that back up the list, in fact.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's like a not very developed Hawaii.
Yeah, that's what I imagine. And I would imagine it also has a bit of like the Maldives kind of in terms of the sea life is traveling there to like at different times of the year to feed. So like sea creatures. So depending on when you go, I would imagine you see different
Right.
things, which is of course also true of Hawaii, but I think of it as being slightly different.
Yeah,
Can't explain
we
that.
did a lot of snorkeling there and it was incredible.
Was it like being in the aquarium?
Yeah, we got to snorkel with manta rays and sharks and it was amazing. Saw clownfish.
Oh, I love this. You must have had the best time.
It was pretty awesome.
Ah, I love this for you. So, how can couples at any stage of their relationship, we sort of started touching on this, use travel as a means to really reconnect? Because, our honeymoon, like we, in theory, are very connected. Or actually, I mean, I would imagine there are stressful wedding planning situations where you might actually feel more disconnected. So, I will turn that over to you.
Yeah, I would say like balancing all the stuff that you talk about on your podcast with like family and money and all
Yeah,
the different things that come into planning a wedding can
it's so
definitely
much.
create a wedge in your relationship. Yeah. So sometimes even after the wedding and on the honeymoon, you need a chance to reconnect too and kind of figure out why did we fall in love with each other?
And like, how do we function as just a couple and not with
Yes.
all these other people involved in our relationship?
For sure. And so I'll kind of speak to just like as you said, like all stages of the relationship. So I think one of the biggest things is to protect your trip from real life. So try to eliminate the everyday stresses because those can potentially follow you everywhere. And I think that's really, really important on a honeymoon because you've already had such a stressful time and you really need that decompression, relaxation time to reconnect with one another. One of the biggest things I think is putting boundaries in place when it comes to work and technology. So give yourself a break. Don't check your email. Try I know as much as possible. Try not to let things with your job interfere because those can bring in unnecessary stresses. And then I would say disconnecting from technology is an amazing way to reconnect. Um, Even if you can't do it the whole day, give yourself a certain time of the day where you're both going to put away your phones. Maybe that's during dinner, stay off of social media. All of those things I think really help you to just spend time, the two of you as a couple. Another strategy I like to do is building in nothing time. where it's time you might take a nap, you could go people watching, or maybe it's time you just wander around and find a fun like cocktail bar that looks cool, or maybe you stop in at an art museum you had no idea existed in that city. So give yourself time and space to just do what suits your fancy on your vacation. And then I talked about this a little bit before, but I love using travel as a conversation reset. So ask questions that you wouldn't ask each other at home. So, like, what surprised you today? And I think travel really opens up the door to these types of conversations because you're experiencing everything new together. You could also ask questions like, what felt easy here? Or what's something from this trip that we want to bring home with us? So maybe it's like, we want to spend more time at home watching the sunset. Or we want to spend an hour each day where we put our phones away and just focus on each other. I think also when you're physically removed from your routine, it becomes easier to open up and talk about like your hopes and your futures together. And just use that time that you're spending together as a chance to reflect on each other and your relationship and move away from the small talk and celebrate those shared experiences.
Love that. And you're so right. It is because we break that habit that all of the things that are distracting at home get lifted. And not letting those creep in is also a really, yeah, I love that.
It's
Yeah.
hard, but it's worth
Yeah,
the effort.
it is worth the effort. And I think, yeah, that it takes practice. But just like anything, it's like moving your body. If you're working out and you just started, it's going to be a little more difficult. You're going to be a little sore, but you can get there.
Absolutely. And I would say for couples who like have a hard time maybe initiating conversations like that, there's like a number of little like games and stuff you can buy. My husband and I have used like there's like table topics or little chat packs, and the chat packs are super portable. So it will just come with like a series of questions that you can ask each other as conversation starters. So those like if you're like feeling like kind of exhausted, those are just a really good way to get a good conversation started with one another, and it oftentimes it opens the door to deeper conversations with one another.
That's fun. I hadn't thought about traveling with anything like that. That's a cool idea. I love that tip.
Yeah.
For our couples who feel overwhelmed by the planning process, or it's just you've spent so much planning the wedding, you don't have the capacity for the honeymoon or the big trip, whatever it is. Um, how do people decide what level of support they need when they're ready, when they decide they're ready to bring in someone like you who's going to help them plan and plan the trip of their dreams?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing I'm working on right now is building a self-paced masterclass for planning trips specifically to reconnect with your partner.
Oh,
So
smart.
listeners can keep their eye out for that on my website. But I offer two levels of support, and I think this is pretty similar to what a lot of travel planners offer if people are looking for support. And that's one is just like a 1 hour, I call it a dream trip blueprint. And basically, it's an overview of what couples might want to do, where they might want to go, how long they might want to spend in a destination, what are options for transportation, what are some of the highlights, what are things to avoid. We can talk about safety, language barriers, all of those sorts of things. But every conversation that I have with couples is always customized. So I'll start out by talking about what are their interests as a couple, what are their travel styles like, how long do they want to spend physically traveling each day, and how much time are they looking for in terms of relaxation, all of that. And then I also offer a more like white glove, high touch service where I plan really everything for the couple. And that works really well for couples who are, like you said, planning a wedding or really just too overwhelmed with work, or people who don't enjoy travel planning very much as well. And when I do that, it involves I will recommend hotels and I'll get an idea of like what their budget is, as well as what their preferences are. So like, are they interested in staying in Airbnbs? Would they rather stay at hotels? What are their dietary preferences? And I'll recommend restaurants. One of the biggest things I think is figuring out like where you're going to stay and then what's going to be convenient. Because
Yeah,
one of my biggest things is trying to take the stress out of travel for couples.
I love that. All right. Well, um, that was an incredible conversation. So much fun. Where can our listeners find you online, Becki?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website, which is researchtravelrepeat.com. I'm also on Instagram. The Instagram handle is a little more complicated. It's at research underscore travel underscore repeat. So I highly recommend just going to my website. That's a little bit easier. Researchtravelrepeat.com.
Perfect. And we will, of course, tag you on Instagram at the Wedding Dish Podcast. And then we will also tag your website in the show notes here in the episode description. So it's easy for you all to go find Becki. Thank you so much for joining me today, Becki. This was truly such a fun conversation. I love talking about travel. I love hearing your insights. I'm definitely going to be implementing some of your tips into my personal travel. And I'm just so thrilled to have had you on the wedding dish today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And it was so much fun talking with you.
Yes, same. And everyone, don't forget to tune in next week for another amazing episode. And if you like the show, give us a follow, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting app. And until we meet again, cheers, everybody.